Welcome to IGH Going Rogue. Today is Wednesday, February the 12th. And we have a great guest today, so we're going to jump right into it. He's on limited time, Emilio Gonzalez. Emilio, welcome to IGH Going Rogue. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for the invitation, and I'm glad to see you back on the air.
I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Why don't you walk us through your background, since I don't want to mess it up. I know you have a long, distinguished record. And by the way, my buddies over at the Navy say go Navy. So
All right, we're all God's children. That's okay.
that's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
26 years in the Army, retired as a colonel, Army Intelligence. Um, did a tour at the White House on the National Security Council. Then I was the immigration director for 2 years under President Bush. And since then, I've been doing a lot of consulting. I'm in the financial services industry now, very active on the Trump campaign as a surrogate, but also operated under Veterans for Trump and National Security Professionals for Trump. And I was fortunate enough to be on his transition team.
Awesome. Well, welcome. So, just going back into the whole intel background and immigration background, I mean, Homan.
Hey, Tom Homan is one of a kind, man. Let me tell you, one of a kind. He calls them like he sees them. He's a cop's cop.
Yeah.
He's got a mission, and he's going to accomplish that mission. And we're all rooting for him 100%.
What do you think about the job he's doing?
Well, listen, I think he's doing a great job
Yeah.
because he's just telling it like it is, and he is making sure that you don't get lost in the fluff or the noise. He is, I think, his official title is Deputy Chief of Staff for enforcement.
Yeah,
Or
I know
something.
I know they call him the border czar, but
I mean, but
yeah,
he's taking that to heart.
yeah,
He's basically the voice and the face of border security. People respect that. People respect him. He's not anybody's fool,
no.
and I think he's going to do great things. He's only been on the job maybe a month, and he's not going to leave a stone unturned until we fix this border issue that we have.
So, quick question. So, we've heard numbers about 680,000 illegal criminals in the country. I bring this number up a lot just because of the simple math. If we're picking up 1,000 people a day, that's over 2 years before we can get this garbage out of here.
Yeah, but Ivan, you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And there are going to be people that you pick up and deport. There are going to be people that are going to deport themselves, and they're not going to wait around to be deported, I guess.
okay.
So there's almost, I would say, an embarrassment of riches of what you can do with the deportation of illegal immigrants. But that just goes to show you how just totally chaotic the Biden administration left the
Yeah,
border. It,
yeah,
it was just it was a no man's land. It was do whatever you want. There were the police department, the border patrol was turned into a social service
yeah.
agency. CBP wasn't allowed to do its job. I mean, it was just a total disaster. And now this administration is going to have to pick up the pieces, and we got to start somewhere.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I've said this before. I've talked to people at the Bureau, and they tell me, hey, we knew where all these people were. We just weren't allowed to go execute and pick them up. Isn't that fucked
Exactly.
up, dude? I mean, that's fucked up.
And then you had ICE that had operational orders so that if ICE was going to go pick up one person and that person was in a room with 10 other illegal immigrants, they were not allowed to pick up the other 10 people. They were only allowed to pick up whoever it was that they had an order for.
And that's going to change, right? Because we
I
heard
think it
Tom
already did.
say,
I
"Hey,
think
you
it
know
already
what? If we
did.
go pick up a guy and he's standing around with a couple other people that have 13s tattooed on their forehead, on their face,
That's right. That's right. They're gone, man. They're
yeah,
gone. They're going to be. We're going to be put in a bag somewhere, and they're going to be thrown out of the country. And now the seriousness of this, you have the administration is wanting to reactivate Guantanamo as sort of a holding pen for all of these folks until we can get them out of the country. So Guantanamo has a capacity of about 30,000 beds, I guess, and and we're not going to wait around. I guess if you pick up a bad guy, we're not going to wait around for their home country to take them. We're going to ship them to Guantanamo, house them there,
yeah.
get them out of our streets, out of our communities, and then start working on repatriation.
What about the? So there's probably 20 million illegals at least.
That's about right. That's about right.
How do we get rid of all these people, or is it impossible?
Well, listen. If you sit back and figure out, how long it'll take you and how many 747s or how many 777s you have to fill to get all these people out,
Yeah, it's
you won't get any
impossible.
sleep at night.
Yeah,
But you have to start somewhere, and you have to send a message. Okay, this is no longer the Wild West. This is no longer a free for all. We're a serious country. We have laws. Those
yeah,
laws have to be enforced. Times have changed. New sheriff in town. I mean, that gets kind of old, but there is a new sheriff in town, and you may not get to all 20 million. Granted, but you start a process, and you keep to that process, and all of a sudden. I'm a believer in self deportation. I
yeah.
think that
So do I.
if you're here and you can't find a job and you have nowhere to live, you may very well want to go home where you have a family structure that can help you out.
Yeah,
But we have to start somewhere. We
yeah.
really
I
do.
agree with you. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, it's impossible to get rid of all these people, but if they know we're coming after them, they might self-deport, right?
Not only that, but and listen, I'm not one for bureaucracy, but I'll give you a perfect example. Everybody is scared of the IRS. Whether you're an individual or a corporation, the last thing you need is the IRS down your throat. It may take that kind of a regimen with immigration laws, where businesses are going to be very scared of
There
visiting
you go.
ICE or CBP, to the tune that they may be shut down. So you may lose your business because you're employing illegals. Once that starts to happen, the jobs go away, the incentives to come here go away. If you don't have a work permit, if you're not authorized to go into a medical facility, if your kids can no longer attend school, and most recently, the president is really tackling this whole issue of birthright citizenship.
Yeah,
So I think there are a lot of angles that you could use, but you've got to start somewhere. You can't just raise your hands and say, "Oh man, there's too many of them. Forget it. We'll deal with it some other time." No,
yeah.
this is one of the few elections, probably the only election, where a president of the United States was elected on an immigration platform. I mean, that never even made the top five before this. And that's what people elected him to do, and he's going to do it, or at least he's going to make a good faith effort to get it done.
Yeah, and I think it starts with the border. You got to lock down that border like he was doing in his first term, and once you seal that off, I think the majority of problems get resolved, right? Especially with drugs, criminals, and more people coming in. And like you said, people that are in that all of a sudden feel surrounded are going to want to leave.
They're gonna want to leave. I mean, if you're here by yourself, even if you're a 20-something young man and life is really tough for you, you may just say, you know what, maybe things weren't so bad in Honduras
Yeah,
or El Salvador. I'm just going to go back, and who knows? But the
yeah.
fact
But with that said, Emilio, what we saw at FEMA,
yeah,
$59 million going to hotels, luxury hotels, or getting EBT cards, or getting Medicaid, they're getting room service, and and housekeeping.
well,
That's a hell of an incentive, right?
one of the best things that's happened to this country has been Doge. Okay, the Department of Government Efficiency. These guys are going in and they're peeling back the onion.
Yep.
And what's happened traditionally, Ivan, is the budgets of these agencies are so big that you can hide anything anywhere. And if you're an activist administration like the Bidens were,
Yep.
where they put in leftists, progressives, whatever you want to call it, throughout the administration, they were sending checks everywhere. Catholic Charities and Lutheran World Services and Hebrew Immigration Society. All of these relocation NGOs made billions. By the way, that hotel in New York is owned by the government of Pakistan.
Right.
So we're sending $58 million to Pakistan. We're putting people who are illegal in hotels with room service and laundry service. We're giving them all sorts of medical benefits, employment benefits. Yet we can't do that for folks who lost their homes in North Carolina or California.
Yeah. Well, and the worst thing about that is, a lot of these people come from very dire straits in their own country, right?
Sure.
Very, very dirt poor. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, if I can just get across the border, I get to live in a hotel. I get room service, I get housekeeping, and I get an EBT card and health insurance. Holy crap. That really is the American dream, right?
Well, let me tell you, Governor Abbott, the guy is a political genius because he took what was essentially a border issue that nobody cared about, and he nationalized that issue. And you hear that term, immigrate. Every state is a border state. It's true.
Yep.
You can talk a good game, but when somebody drops 50,000 illegal migrants in your city, you have to deal with it. And then all of a sudden, your story changes.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of that, that's one of the things that Homan wants to tackle. He wants to tackle the sanctuary cities, the sanctuary states. If you want to be a sanctuary city, fine. Don't count on any U.S. government financing, support, logistics, whatever. And oh, by the way, if you purposely hide an illegal immigrant, you're running afoul of federal law, and we're coming after you. The minute you see a big city mayor in handcuffs being prosecuted at the federal level, you're going to see people's tunes changing considerably.
That's going to be really interesting. I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned because I brought it up yesterday on yesterday's show and you were part of the Bush administration, part of 43. He had something very specific, the guest worker visa program. Why are we not doing that? Why are employers this whole bullshit about farmers and agro and cattle and they need workers? Okay.
We always did that. We always had those types of visas. Okay, and for the better part, they worked. The problem is that the people that are coming across the border, they're not coming across the border to work ag. They're coming across the border to do anything.
Right.
They're going to want to work construction. They're going to want to sit back and maybe catch a government check.
Yep.
Why would I work if the U.S. government is sending me however little they're sending me?
Yep.
That's a lot of money considering I just came from a country where the minimum wage is $3 a day or something.
Yeah.
So the volume of people that the Biden administration let through. And by the way, Ivan, this is something that I challenge my friends on the Democratic side. Nobody's ever been able to explain what the strategy was in opening the U.S. border. The administration has never, ever explained other than anybody should be allowed to apply for asylum. I agree. But if you have to cross 11 national borders to get to the U.S. to apply for asylum, you're really not applying for asylum. Right. You're using our asylum laws as a way to get into the country and staying here, which is another issue is the perversion of our asylum laws, the perversion of TPS, which we're hearing a lot about now. And so again, this administration is going to have a full plate when it comes to immigration. It's all connected: immigration, border security, crime. It's all interconnected, and this administration is going to have to work on several fronts to get this done.
Do you think this administration has a real appetite to enforce laws, like you were mentioning, to penalize employers? Maybe take their business, fine them, put them in jail, like I said yesterday.
Yeah, I think there are many avenues. Look, E-Verify. I don't know if you've heard of E-Verify, which is an electronic app that businesses can check people's social security number.
We've been talking about E-Verify for 20 years. Emilio.
We have, and by the way, and it works. The problem is that people don't want to use it. You know why? Businesses don't want to use it. Why? Because if they want to hire Ivan Garcia and he goes through E-Verify and it turns out that Ivan is illegal, they now have a quandary, right? They have to probably not only not offer him a job, but probably turn him in.
Yeah.
So nobody wants to do that. But E-Verify works. The error rate is less than 0.1%.
Wow.
Again, you're going to have site visits. All of these things are part of the greater whole. You've got a lot of illegal immigrants right now that are in prison. Okay? As soon as they finish their prison sentence, they go directly to an aircraft. No appeal, no nothing. And as you mentioned, we have hundreds of thousands of people here that have criminal records.
Yeah.
We know where most of them are. Why? Because that's where they get their welfare check sent or their Social Security check sent. So again, this is going to be more than anything else. It's not going to be because they don't want to do it. It's going to be of scale. Where do you start? In the military, we call this a target-rich environment.
Yep.
Where do you start? and then you just keep on going and going and going, and at some point, people will notice the difference.
Emilio, you're an encyclopedia of wealth and information, and I appreciate you being here. I want to pick your brain on a couple issues that are related to the border, that are very specific for national security, right up your realm, right down your valley. Cartels. How are we going to deal with the cartels? Where the president just classified them as terrorists, so officially now we could go into Mexico and crush them. That's not going to be that easy either, right?
Well, the cartels have now been classified as transnational organization, the criminal organizations, TCOs. And what that does is it allows the federal government to actually use a lot of tools, enforcement tools, economic and financial enforcement tools, but it does keep a military option on the table. If you know that there is a location that the cartel is using, you then have a right to take it out. Now, do we want to launch a cruise missile across the Mexican borders? No. That having been said, you can always go to the Mexican government and say, we know this is happening here and we expect you to do something. And if you don't do something, our options are open. And when you saw President Sheinbaum all of a sudden changing her tune from absolutely not, we're not going to cooperate with the U.S. government on immigration. Now all of a sudden she wants to be cooperative. She wants to send 10,000 troops to the border. Well, where were they 5 years ago? Okay, I've got a real problem with all of the countries in Central America,
Right.
but particularly Mexico.
100%.
All of these caravans that you remember we see on TV coming through, none of those people were destitute or poor, because every one of them was sponsored by some relative. They were coming across the border. They were buying water. They were buying food. They were buying transportation. They were buying hotel rooms. And every single government was giving them transit visas, not permanent visas. And as they crossed country by country, they were dropping huge amounts of dollars until they got to Mexico, which is a very large country, and they dropped an inordinate amount of money into Mexico. So,
well, and along the way, right? So it helps every country's economy as well to have
and they
tens of thousands of people trekking through.
No interest, and that's just an economic example. Then you get the national security example. During the Biden administration, 65,000 Chinese military-age men crossed into the U.S., primarily into California, from Mexico. That's about the equivalent of, I don't know, 7 infantry divisions. The Chinese control everybody that comes in and out of their country. And by the way, the Mexicans do too. They have a very good internal. I know I was the army attaché in Mexico. I know how they operate. So you mean to tell me you get these plane loads of Chinese flying into Mexico City and you're not asking yourself, gee, why is that? Why do these people not have luggage? They all have backpacks. Why is it that, another example, why is it that Turkish Airways has a daily flight from Istanbul to Bogota, and that flight is filled with African men from Mauritania and Guinea? Okay, nobody asks that question. Nobody goes to the Mexican government and say, gee, we'd like to learn more about your tourism marketing in West Africa. Another example, nobody flies into Nicaragua because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Nicaragua's a beggar state.
Wow.
So where do people fly into? They fly into El Salvador, that has a very, very vast international transport system. All of a sudden, LATAM Airways, that flies right here into Miami, quadruples the number of its flights from San Salvador to Managua. Why? Because there's money there. They're transporting illegals. And oh, by the way, speaking of our friends in El Salvador, they saw the business aspect of this as well, and they figure, well, if they're not going to come through El Salvador, we'll just charge every single one of them 1,300 euros for a transit visa. And that's exactly what they did.
Wow.
So all these people that are now they're going back to Nicaragua to come back across. Each one of those has dropped 1,300 euros collectible at the airport, so that you can get on a plane and go to Nicaragua and be trafficked into Texas. Huge business opportunity. There was an instance where all of a sudden the charter the charter airline business between Haiti and Nicaragua was off the charts. 20, 30 flights a day, charter flights a day, flying into Nicaragua. Why is that? Why did nobody call them out on this? Again, this is a business. The cartels went from, they didn't exchange fentanyl for migrants, they added migrants to their menu of offerings. So they not only pushed drugs across the border, now they were making a killing on migrants.
That's amazing.
And one last item, Ivan. All of this started. All of this started when Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela got together. They saw the opportunity when Biden opened the borders. So what do you get? Cuba needs a safety valve. They then allow people to travel on vacation to Managua.
Yeah.
You have to buy a round trip ticket, even though you only go one way. The tickets cost $4,000.
Wow.
Okay, so then you go into Managua, but you know what? Cuba has no airlift. So Venezuela decides to loan them or at least lease them aircraft. And then when you get to Managua, you have all of the coyotes there with signs saying, Ivan Garcia, Emilio Gonzalez, because it's all prepaid and pre-programmed. Yeah. So you do the math. Back of the napkin stuff. Cuba has trafficked over 500,000 people during the Biden administration. Wow. That's 5% of their population. Just on airfare alone, 500,000 times 4,000 is $2 billion. So there's $2 billion right there, just in that little segment. And then when you get to Managua, you're going to pay anywhere between $6,000 and $12,000 to get traffic to the border. The low end, you're going to walk. The high end, you'll get transit. And everybody makes money along the way. And the Mexican government makes money by looking the other way, maybe even facilitating this since they're not staying. So it has become a business. And I was doing a lot of social media, and I always used to end my tweets by saying, it's a business. Follow the money. When you follow the money, you'll understand. And then recently, we've all been seeing following the money internally, right? Who made money off of illegal immigration? Regional governments, the cartels, and the NGOs.
Yeah,
the U.S. NGOs made billions, billions, housing, transporting, you name it. So it became a business where the only person that did not really play in this was the U.S. taxpayer. We didn't play, we paid.
Yeah, we didn't play, we paid. That's right.
Exactly.
Emilio, so it's been said, well, I guess it's more than been said, it's been confirmed, that for a long, long time, there's always been a member of the cartel in the Mexican cabinet. If that's the case, and we know that to be fact, how are we going to hold them accountable to do something against the cartels?
I don't think they may have an individual cartel member in the cabinet, but I do think the Mexican cabinets writ large tend to be like rent a minister.
Yeah.
And it's been proven, right?
Yeah.
Not long ago, I think the guy's last name was Luna, the attorney general or something, was indicted.
Yep.
It happens all the time. The cartels own about 30 to 40% of Mexico.
Yep.
I served as the army attaché in Mexico many years ago. Back then, we were worried about cartels. I can imagine now. And the Mexican government has gone through different iterations. They've abolished police departments. They created the National Guard, which is a parallel army. They've used the army, which they didn't use before. And the army was always I'll tell you institutionally, the army was always very hesitant to be involved in the drug war because of corruption. They feared that because they pay so little, that their soldiers and officers would be corrupted. And we're seeing that now. So across all of Mexico, whether it's at the national level or at the state level, the cartels have their claws into everything. Can the Mexican government do something? Absolutely, but they won't do it of their own volition. They have to be forced into doing it. It has to be painful, and then they can take action.
And you think Trump will?
I think he's starting. I think he's starting. All of a sudden, we could never, in our wildest dreams, would have gotten the Mexican government to commit 10,000 soldiers to patrol their side of the border. Now, what they do with it is another matter.
Yeah.
But up until Trump took office, you had millions of people staging on the Mexican side of the border, and they didn't do squat. In fact, they were there selling them water and food and tortillas and diapers for the kids. It was a business for them. Now they're going to be held accountable. We're going to put 10,000 soldiers. That's the equivalent of a division and a half of infantry, and we're going to see what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
So the other question that everybody's wondering, and has been said and reported widely, is that the cartels have threatened to use drones to attack U.S. troops. What would happen?
I think that would be a huge strategic mistake with this administration. I think the minute they launch a drone across the U.S. border, all bets are off.
You think so?
All bets, absolutely. All bets are off.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means it could mean any number of things. It could be insertion of special forces. It could mean firing back our own weaponry. By the way, our heavy artillery has a range of about 30 kilometers. Okay, so
we can get there.
I genuinely think that whatever cartel member decides this is a good idea, his colleagues should probably take him out, because that would be the end. That would absolutely be the end.
And you're convinced about that, right?
Absolutely. An attack across the U.S. border under this administration would be an unforgivable act. And I think if this administration did not act, I think it would lose all credibility all around the world.
I agree with you. Emilio, we're way past your 20 minutes, man. I appreciate you. Hopefully we can get you back again and for a long form, for a good 45 to 60. You know so much. There's so much to explain. I know we have learned so much in the short 30-minute span, and we have to do it again.
Hey, it'd be my pleasure, Ivan. It's a lot of fun. Listen, I wish you well. I'm glad you're back on the air, and I look forward to doing this again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Emilio. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. Hopefully everybody had a good time. Emilio Gonzalez, man, that guy is so knowledgeable. He's an encyclopedia. He just knows so much, and we've heard from him real, tangible, factual stuff, information, data, numbers, how it really works, who's making money, how are people making money through this trafficking of humans, right? The cartels, the coyotes, the countries, the immigration systems of different countries, and obviously what would happen if the cartels were to decide to attack our troops across the border, coming from a Army officer, intelligence guy, National Security Council. That's very reassuring. That's good to hear. I think everybody would love to see the Trump administration crush the cartels. I think it's easier said than done, but without a doubt, that would probably happen. Mr. Producer, what do we have teed up over there? I know we have some things teed up that we were going to talk about today.
Let's start with Ann Fogle reacts to the release of her brother Mark from a Russian prison after being wrongfully detained in 2021. 25-second clip.
Okay, let's go.
So often politicians make promises, and we know a promise was made to your mother. How does it make you feel that 2 weeks in, they followed through with the promise that they made?
He was true to his word. It's amazing. It's just such a different a relationship. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to the president.
So often politicians.
Boom. That is an accomplishment, huge accomplishment for President Trump to get a U.S. citizen out of Russia. Huge news yesterday. But I just sent you a tweet right now, if you can throw it up there. Big news. Tulsi gets confirmed as DNI. So that is big news. We talked about it yesterday on the show. Did she have the votes? Were we going to be able to do that? And let's see what happens with RFK. There she is. Look at that. She's a stud, man. Tulsi, new DNI.
Yeah, great AI image. True.
Oh, come on.
Fantastic.
You think that's AI?
That is 100% AI.
Why is that?
Yeah, because I can totally read the illegible writing on her plates. Yeah, great.
So anyway, so there's another tweet that we had up there, or video clip from Elon, that they talk about that he saved, I think, $1 billion out of spending out of the Department of Education so far, which is insane. And most of there it is.
I think there's this one, but yeah.
There it is. There it is. Elon's Doge just saved taxpayers $982 million by cutting wasteful spending out of the Department of Education. Look, $881 million was axed from 89 bloated contracts. So that means overinflated. That means they were overvalued. Somebody was probably skimming and getting a side piece, you know. And look, $101 million for fucking DEI. I'm sorry, for DEI training grants. Dude, this whole thing has been a racket and a scam. And there's a video of Elon saying that they're going to go after everybody that has made money, that has become rich. I don't know if you have that video, Mr. Producer.
Let's see. I have a couple other different videos.
All right, well, throw them up there. Let's see what you got. There it
This
is.
is big numbers. Talking about $100 to $200 billion a year. Serious money.
Mr. Musk, you said on X
Yeah.
that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact check this, it apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas actually, it was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
So, by the way, we fact checked it first. Mr. Producer over here fact checked that on Monday, right? Or was it last week?
I think it might have been last week.
Yeah, you said it's not Gaza, the Gaza Strip, it's Gaza and Mozambique. So we'll take credit for that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Producer. You're a stud. All right, what do you got?
Oh, this will be fun.
You know, one of the things is like we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this, obviously there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay, well, if people can retire, you know, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told no, the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. And then
That's pretty pathetic, man. That is pretty pathetic. So everything is actually manual. That's why we need Doge. So I sent you a tweet about the judge, the famous or infamous judge now. Guess what, guys? This piece of shit is actually married to, look at that. The swamp is deep. One of the activist judges blocking Trump's agenda, Judge John Bates, is married to the founder of a USAID-funded NGO, Carol Rees, is a Democrat lawyer who started Hope for Children in Ethiopia, a longtime USAID grant recipient. So he's blocking Trump from stopping, you know, the bleed and the payouts of all these scam funds. Why? Because it directly affects his wife. That's a conflict of interest. This guy should be disbarred, thrown out, and locked up. What a piece of shit, like all these fucking Democrats are. Anyways, guys, there's so much to talk about. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we have a kick-ass day. Tomorrow is Friday, right? Oh, tomorrow's Thursday. Oh, shit. All right, so maybe we'll move it to Friday. No, we have a schedule tomorrow. Maybe we'll just keep it on Thursday. But we had something that was real fun. Back in Battleground, we had Law Enforcement Fridays. I made a mistake and scheduled it for tomorrow, so we'll keep it for tomorrow. And we're going to be talking about situational awareness, what to be looking out for. We know there's criminal element everywhere. We know there are terrorists out here lurking about. We know there are gangs like Trendaragua, MS-13, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you protect yourself? How do you protect your family? How do you become aware and not become a victim? You do not want to miss tomorrow's show. As always, IGH Going Rogue. You can find us on Rumble, Spotify, Spreaker, Apple, Amazon, Audible, who else? iHeart, Jesus, Pandora. We're everywhere. Do not miss us. Follow us on, we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and on TikTok. Go, find us, like us, share us, and we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to kick ass tomorrow. Take care.